Welcome back. We're on chapter 5 of the God story. Just a reminder that this video is a summary only. You'll get a lot more out of the content by reading the chapter yourself. Our story picks up in the wake of deep grief. Moses is dead. But even in mourning, the God of life calls his people forward. The 40 days of grief are over. The wilderness journey is ended. It's time to step into promise. And the one chosen to lead them isn't the obvious successor. Not the strongest, not the most commanding. It's Joshua, the man who once stood in Moses' shadow, quietly staying behind in the tent of meeting, lingering in God's presence. Joshua's leadership flows not from charisma, but from proximity to God. And now God speaks to him directly. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. Be strong and courageous. This phrase becomes a refrain, not just for Joshua, but for all who will follow the path of faith. Strength and courage aren't self-generated. They come from trust in God's faithful presence. Joshua leads the people to the Jordan River, and it's there that God begins writing echoes of the Exodus into a new generation. The priests step into the water carrying the Ark of the Covenant, and once again, God makes a way through impossible barriers. The river parts, not dramatically like the Red Sea, but enough. Enough for the people to walk through, out of wilderness, into promise. And where does the river stop? Upstream, near a town called Adam. The imagery is subtle but rich, as if God is saying, this redemption I'm working, it goes all the way back, all the way to the beginning, all the way to Adam. At Gilgal, the people pause. They renew the covenant. They're circumcised, marking their identity, and they celebrate the Passover, remembering the rescue that brought them here. And they receive fresh provision. No more manna for them. Now they will eat from the land of promise. Then we get to Jericho. And here, the strategy makes no military sense. March around the city in silence. Blow trumpets. Shout on the seventh day. It's as if God is asking, will you trust me with the impossible? Will you obey even when it seems absurd? The walls fall, not because of force, but faith. But just before that first battle, Joshua encounters a strange figure, a man with a drawn sword. Joshua demands to know, are you for us or for our enemies? And the answer comes, neither. I am the commander of the Lord's army. Then the man says, take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy. It's a sacred moment. Joshua's burning bush. He removes his sandals. This is holy ground. The point is clear. God isn't taking sides. He's inviting us to take his. Israel begins to settle the land. But there are setbacks. Achan's hidden sin after Jericho, divisions among the tribes, and cycles of compromise. The book of Joshua ends with another covenant renewal. Choose this day whom you will serve, Joshua says. And the people respond, we will serve the Lord. But the book of Judges tells another story. A generation rises that does not know the Lord or what he had done. And the downward spiral begins. Israel forgets. They chase after idols, mimic the nations around them, lose their distinctiveness. And so begins the tragic cycle. Rebellion, oppression, repentance, rescue. God raises up judges, not courtroom judges, but deliverers, like Deborah, Gideon, and Samson. And some are faithful, some are deeply flawed. but God works through all of them. Still, the people keep spiraling, and the final chapters of Judges are bleak. Israel has become indistinguishable from the Canaanites they were meant to displace. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. The darkness is deep. And then light. It begins quietly, with a woman named Hannah. She is childless in a culture that equates worth with fertility. Mocked by her husband's other wife, she carries deep sorrow. But instead of turning inward, she brings her pain to God. Her grief becomes prayer, and her prayer becomes surrender. And God hears. She gives birth to Samuel. And Samuel becomes a prophet, a priest, and the last judge. He speaks God's words. He lives close to God's heart. But as he grows old, the people come to him with a demand. Give us a king. We want to be like the other nations. Samuel is crushed. But God tells him, they haven't rejected you. They've rejected me as king. Even so, God allows it. Plan B begins. But plan B is not second best. It's a different path to the same redemption. Saul is chosen as king, and he looks the part, tall, impressive, and commanding. And at first he's humble, but his heart drifts. He fears people more than God. He disobeys, compromises, tries to hold on to power. And eventually God says, I regret making Saul king. Then God sends Samuel to a little town called Bethlehem, to a shepherd boy named David, the youngest, overlooked. But God sees the heart. David is anointed in secret. He waits years before ascending the throne. He writes psalms full of longing and intimacy. He dances before the Lord. He builds a city. He dreams of building a temple. David becomes the model king, not because he's perfect, but because he hungers for God. His psalms reveal a soul that is honest, broken, worshipful, and fiercely devoted. They reflect not just his words, but his life. A man who longs for God's presence more than anything else. But even David is not immune to sin. One evening, desire takes over. He sees a woman bathing, Bathsheba, and abuses his power to sleep with her. When she becomes pregnant, he arranges the death of her husband, Uriah. It's a terrible moment of lust, manipulation, and betrayal. But God sees. And God sends the prophet Nathan, who confronts David with a story that exposes his heart. David breaks. He repents, not just because he's been caught, but because he's convicted. And God forgives. There are consequences. Pain, fallout. But there's also grace. Through this brokenness, a son is born. And from that son, Solomon, the promise continues. And Solomon begins well. When given the chance to ask for anything, he doesn't ask for wealth or for victory. He asks for wisdom. And God grants it. The kingdom flourishes. The temple is built. God's glory fills it like a cloud. Nations come to listen. The Queen of Sheba is overwhelmed. But over time, Solomon drifts. And what's striking is that the path of his compromise isn't accidental. It's precisely what Moses had warned about generations earlier. In Deuteronomy, God had given instructions for future kings. Don't accumulate excessive wealth, wives, and don't build military power, especially not through Egypt. But Solomon does all three. He amasses wealth, marries many foreign wives, and imports horses from Egypt. It's as if he's deliberately walking the opposite direction of what God intended for Israel's king. His heart becomes divided. The one who once built a house for God begins building altars for other gods. He tries to hold the covenant in one hand and idolatry in the other, and that always leads to ruin. After his death, the kingdom fractures. The northern tribes form Israel, the southern tribes form Judah, and the spiral begins again. Most kings lead the people deeper into idolatry. A few shine, Hezekiah and Josiah, but they can't stop the tide. Injustice flourishes, the poor are trampled, the covenant is forgotten. But God keeps speaking. He sends prophets, not just to denounce sin, but to call people back to covenant. They name the injustice, yes, but they also name the hope. They speak of the one who will come. A king who will be unlike Saul, David, or Solomon. One who will carry both justice and mercy, truth and grace. One who will not be corrupted by power, but who will lay down his power to serve. And then exile. Assyria conquers the north. Babylon destroys Jerusalem. The temple burns. The people are taken away in chains. The land is left desolate. It looks like the end, but it's not. Because even in exile, God is at work. The prophets keep speaking. A new covenant, written not on stone, but on hearts. That God will dwell with his people again. But as the curtain falls in this chapter, the promise remains. The story isn't over. God's love hasn't run out. His covenant hasn't failed. Because the God who started this story still holds the pen. The God story keeps unfolding. And hope, quiet, resilient, burning through the darkness, remains.